Fitting an aftermarket bullbar to your 4x4 might seem like something of a no-brainer, almost the price of entry to the club, isn't it? But have you ever stopped to consider exactly what the potential implications are for your warranty and how doing this might package up your legislated consumer law protections and just hurl them under the bus? This has just happened, so a good time to talk about the real cost of modifications such as this. I'm John Cadogan from Expert.com.au, Newcastle cheap, Australia only website. Card. Picture this, okay? You've been pretty happy with your ute, you've had it for 6 years, you're about to clock over 150,000 Ks, and you are properly living the dream. You've got your acoustically transparent aluminium chitois out the back, and you're cruising up to 80, 90 Ks an hour for a leisurely little sojourn to Dingo Piss Creek, and then all of a sudden the engine composes a letter to its barrister, goes poopy in its trousers, and you're back at a dealership. This wasn't in the plan, and the car company throws you under the bus and says, that's on you. This is how consumer law and warranty works in practice. This video is sponsored by OITE Sale, 8 p.m, Tuesday, September the 19th until midnight, Saturday, the 23rd. Links in the description. I use an OITE every day. It's this Warrior Mini 2. This has been superseded by the Mini 3 now, but mine just refuses to die despite my numerous attempts, and now we're emotionally attached. So my top recommendations on OITE for you are the Warrior Mini 3 for the ultimate in-pocket EDC experience and also its general cockroach-like ability to survive. The Warrior 3S if you want the same kind of torch, only bigger and brighter. With a swivel, it's a torch and a work light, and dude, it's less than $40 during the sale, so that's a no-brainer. Alternatively, if you need a power bank for your phone, grab a Swivel Pro Max. It's a power bank plus a work light and an emergency red strobe. New this month, the Seeker 4 Pro, optimised for outdoor use, brighter than ever at 4,600 lumens and with 2 charging options, a magnetic base or USB-C via the included holster. O-Lantern Music is a retro-styled lantern with stepless dimming and built-in Bluetooth speakers that mean Celine Dion can accompany you everywhere. Now, who doesn't want that? Plus, it is also a backup power bank. The OPRI 2 EDC titanium multi-tool. This is great to screw tripod plates onto cameras. Plus, it's a mini pry bar, and it's got 3 bit drivers in a concealed compartment. It weighs essentially nothing. Now, if you need to get approval for purchases such as these from your other half, your planned transactions might be lubricated with this gorgeous pink O-Pen Glow. It's actually a really good pen and a great handbag torch. Or this delightful pink Otacle multi-tool box opener. Nothing says our relationship is on track and rock solid, darling, quite like giving that special someone a razor blade for her handbag. I asked ex-wives 2 through 5 inclusive, and they all agreed, dude. In the closing stages of our relationships, such a gift would have been a strategic error. Go figure. But it might just grease the wheels enough for you to procure that OITE of your dreams before the sale ends on Saturday when the big fat discounts run out. Link in the description, and thanks to OITE for supporting this channel. This actually just happened. It is a real-world test case for how warranties and consumer law are administered in practice. Our hero today is a dude named Bill who says, I'm 71 and purchased a new Isuzu Dmax four-wheel drive in December of 2017 to be my last car for towing my caravan. So this is every box, isn't it? This is last car, living the dream, going to hit the road and be a grey nomad. What could possibly go wrong? Well, here it is. The engine failed after 10 minutes running from cold on a 20-degree day, so not a real hot day. As I was winding up to cruise speed of about 90 k's an hour. About 80 k's an hour, the engine started to knock lightly, then started missing, and then smoking very badly. That's not in the script, is it? This car has done 148,000 kilometres. I have trucked it back to the dealers and they contacted Isuzu UTE Australia, who told them to do a compression test and remove the injector from the affected cylinder and put a camera down to see the fault, which they did and found number one piston faulty. This is going to put that particular caravan toting exercise on hold for at least a few weeks, is it not? Isuzu UTE Australia then asked for photos, and from the photos they've determined that the aftermarket rhubar had caused the problem by not passing enough air through the intercooler. And you can see the rhubar just there. Looks like more of a bullbar to me, but hey, tomato, tomato. The engine has had oil and filter changed every 10,000 kilometres, even though Isuzu says every 20,000 k's, and it was serviced by the dealer until about 130,000 kilometres on the clock. My thoughts were that if a piston had failed through overheating, that one, other things should have shown up like engine air temp or engine water temp. I don't think so, because I'm not sure the engine actually measures the air temperature. I think it's got a mass airflow sensor, but not a direct temperature, inlet temperature measurement. Water temp, well, water temp's thermostatically controlled and there's probably a fair bit of reserve cooling capacity there, so you can have piston failure certainly without ever overheating the engine, so there's that, like if you run it too lean or something. Two, either numbers 3 or 4 should have failed first, as number 1 has better airflow. I'd suggest there that engines are not really convectively cooled. Like they are subject to a bit of forced convection, but the main mechanism of cooling is heat transfer through the water to the radiator. So there's that. And Bill goes on and says 3 or something else. How can they determine from photos that it was not fuel related, i.e. injector failure? Well, they probably can't tell from the photos, but that might not be their objective. They might just want to get out of it somehow. And we're going to get into exactly how Bill has just handed them this golden opportunity to say, no, piss off, that's on you. Bill concludes by saying, what are your thoughts on this and can you help me in any way? I'm sorry to say, Bill, that ultimately I don't think I can help you, but maybe what has happened to you can be a salient warning to others to not put themselves in this position. I got back to Bill, actually, and I said, see a solicitor and get them to write a letter of demand because you want this repaired for free, and it's a consumer law thing, right? Get the solicitor to tell Isuzu UTE Australia that the car is in breach of the consumer guarantee of acceptable quality, and at this point, I haven't seen any of the photos, right? Like, it's all just Greek to me, visually. I've read Bill's email, but he hasn't shown me any photos. I said that they cannot know that the rhubar caused the failure. That's kind of absurd. Sincerely me. So I didn't know if it was a bullbar or a rhubar, what it looked like, or any of that stuff, but it seemed reasonable to take it to the next level in terms of, well, they're trying to throw you under the bus. Why don't you tell them you're not just going to sit down and cop that, you know? So I thought that might be the end of it, and I never ask people to write to me with their automotive problems like I'm over it. I've seen every automotive problem, and I'm not gagging to hear yours, for example. I don't actually have the time or the inclination to get back to most of the people who write to me with their various problems. Half of them are functionally insane, and I just can't work for a whole bunch of people for free. Like, come on. So I didn't just say, and if you've got a problem, write it to me because I'd love to see it, because I wouldn't, right? I'm just Occasionally people reach out to me, and if I have time, I try and do the best I can to help them, but it's not my career, you know what I mean? Like, it's functionally not what I do. Anyway, Bill gets back to me and says, I've encountered two problems. First problem is that Isuzu Ute Australia have had photos taken of the piston, and it shows a crack and the hole, and that is how they came to the conclusion that the intercooler, being partly shrouded by the rhubar, has caused this problem. And the second problem is the solicitor I contacted has told me I need to prove otherwise to stand a chance in court. However, nobody seems to know who could do this. The upshot is that pistons 1 and 3 are cracked, I think. So this is a major problem with the internals on the engine, and there might be other damage as well, so we don't know. And it's going to be a fairly expensive repair bill, is it not? So Isuzu Ute Australia gets back to Bill with an official response about why they think that they're not going to come to the party with any consumer law sort of remedy, which means they're not going to fix it for free. That's going to be on Bill. And I'd suggest that the repair bill for this is probably going to nudge 20 grand. I don't really know what it's going to be, but, you know, that's a lot of hoot, isn't it? Isuzu Ute Australia now. Isuzu Ute Australia, together with the engine design team, has so not that literate, but hey, engineers, has conduct an extensive investigation into cases of thermal overload of the piston crown in vehicles equipped with... Just going to stop there for a second. So why would you conduct an extensive investigation into something that didn't fucking happen very often? So much for those clowns and their purported legendary truck-like reliability. Like, come on. It sounds to me like this is happening all over the shop. Okay, point one. Conduct an extensive investigation into cases of thermal overload of the piston crown in vehicles equipped with aftermarket vehicle frontal protection system, VPFS, which is actually the wrong way around, is it not? It's VFPS. And why not just call it a fucking bullbar? Pro tip: vehicle frontal protection system. The investigation found that due to the constrained airflow through the charge air cooler, brackets CAC, why not just call it a fucking intercooler, related to the reduced air opening, they didn't give that an acronym, the RAO, in the area directly in front of the CAC in certain designs of aftermarket VFPS, they got it around the right way this time. The CAC outlet temperature under a range of conditions was measured to be in excess of the engine intake air temperature designed criteria, and also the design criteria, if you ever wanted to have a proofreader get into it. This failure, as seen in your vehicle, is a result of repetitive increased air intake temperatures in excess of the design criteria, got it right that time, due to the restricted airflow through the CAC, also called a fucking intercooler, coupled with high engine loads. It is not a single event, but repeated thermal stress over a period of time. There is a direct correlation between intake air temperature and piston temperature. Thanks and regards, Isuzu Ute Australia. Could this be the case? So what they're saying is, you put all of that crap in front of the intercooler and it restricted the airflow, and this increased the inlet air temperature, which directly caused elevated piston temperatures over time, and ultimately the engine failed as a consequence of that. That's the reductio ad absurdum of their allegation, right? Could that be the case? Yeah, it could. So you can see from the photographs of Bill's car exactly how much of the air inlet is shrouded. And when you compare it with the naked standard version in red, there's a lot of occlusion of the inlet air pathway, is there not? Because the bullbar itself has a significant sort of bumper component where the largest part of the air intake is, which is kind of the lowest bit of the air intake, and it's not really helped by the location of the number plate, is it? Like you can see on the clean skin that the number plate basically is below that lower air intake, whereas in Bill's car, it's right in the middle of the concession to air intake that the bullbar designer and manufacturer built into their bullbar. And I'm not sure the light bar's helping either, because it's really shrouding the top quarter of the potential pathway for inlet air through the upper level of that air intake. Like there's 3 air intakes. There's one near the Isuzu badge, and then there's one just below the Isuzu badge, and then there's a big one sort of in the bumper area generally, and they're all there for a reason. Like they all do something. And I do have some sympathy for car manufacturers who go through great series of hoops. They jump through this great series of hoops in R&D, don't they, to get everything as right as they can with other constraints around them like the budget and things of that nature. So they go, you know what, we've got to have this styling, but we've also got to have this airflow. Here's a balancing act. And then someone with a CNC plasma cutter and a frickin' welder has a better idea. And they go, and then some knob, absolute knob, puts the number plate right in the middle of that particular aperture and the light bar. And all of a sudden the engine is really not able to access the full airflow that the designers intended. That's pretty clear. And not only that, we're sticking a acoustically transparent aluminium chitoir on the back so that Bill and his lovely wife can take their effluent on tour in outback Australia on the road to DPCK. That's an Isuzu Ute acronym for Dingo Piss Creek, incidentally. And over time, I could see that that might be a real problem. And the cumulative impact of that could be that one day the pistons just go, yeah. Or it could just be abject car maker bullshit. How would we know? In other words, this could be just an excuse to hide behind and deny a consumer law claim, couldn't it? How would we know? How would you know? How would I know? How would Bill know? The only way to tell would be to do hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of actual engineering research. Put temperature probes everywhere and block up the air intake and measure the piston crowns and have access to a few engines so that when they launch themselves, you could put some pegs in the ground about when that would happen and over what distance and things of that nature. So much more expensive than just replacing the frickin' engine. I'd suggest that I'm not really predisposed to give Isuzu Ute Australia that much benefit of the doubt, because they are functionally one of the worst car makers when it comes to warranty and consumer law claims. They're just terrible at it. They're actually in the denial of claim business, and I use that term advisedly because it is a business. If you say, oh, sorry about your failed engine, we'll get you a new one, what happens to Isuzu Ute Australia? They have to order an engine from the mothership. They get it shipped here at their cost and they just give it away. And then not only that, but they pay the dealer a labour fee to fit it. Whereas if they deny the claim, then they order the same engine from the mothership and they mark it up so that they make their margin on it, and then they send it to the dealer and the dealer marks it up so that he makes his margin on it, and he fits it to Bill's car and charges even more for the labour than Isuzu Ute Australia would have paid them for the labour. So if they can deny these claims, it is a far more profitable exercise for them. And this is on the morality of the car company, right? And they're not alone, Isuzu. There are other terrible car makers as well, like Volkswagen, Ford, all of the suite of Stellantis shitboxes as well, notably Jeep, etc. And Mercedes-Benz. They're all in the business of throwing customers under the bus profitably. And there is a tremendous imbalance of power because you're a punter who's 72, presumably retired, bought your last vehicle, literally driving off into the sunset, last stop, God's waiting room kind of thing, whereas you're up against a fully functional multinational business Who do you think's got more power? And I'm not saying that Isuzu is bullshitting in this case. Their allegation about occluding the airflow could be absolutely on the money, and that might be what caused it. How would we know, right? I'm just saying they've got form at denying legitimate claims and throwing customers under the bus. So, I would suggest that you buy your vehicles from manufacturers with less of a reprehensible record than that. But I'd also do the absolute minimum modification, because this kind of thing happens all the time. And I always get outrage when I do a video like this, outrage from some punter who says, "Oh, you're telling me not to modify my vehicle." I don't care if you modify your vehicle, dude. Like, have at it. But this is the practical application of the consequences. And I don't know how Bill could prove that that's not the case, if in fact it's not the case. It would cost more to do that than it would just to rebuild or replace the engine. So there's that. I would take anything in the website from Isuzu Australia about their legendary truck-like reliability, given that they've had to conduct this extensive investigation into failures of this nature. They've got to be happening for a reason. And if that is the case, then why wouldn't you proactively reach out to bullbar manufacturers and say, "Hey, dude, you might want to just really think about the airflow implications of this." The other thing I'd suggest here is that Bill might have, if that is the case, he might have a claim against the bullbar manufacturer for occluding the airflow on his behalf. But once again, he's up on a "you've got to prove it" sort of pedestal, and proving it's going to be really hard. So in practice, he's going to be footing the tab for something, or the ute's going to be sitting in the driveway not functional, which is, like, cars are great, but they're terrible yard furniture, so they've got to be fixed somehow. And the final thing I'd say here is, what is the purpose of this bull bar? Like, I know I cop flack for this all the time too, but bull bars are the dodgiest pieces of unnecessary shit ever. They just are. Because not only are you opening the door to this kind of $20,000 incident, but you're also in a position where if you have a serious crash, like a life-threatening crash, the compatibility of all of the mechanisms that leap out to try and save your life when the window of opportunity is open and the Grim Reaper is reaching through for you like this, all of the airbags and the crumple zones and the load-limiting pyrotechnic seatbelt pretensions and all of that, putting a bull bar between you and that stuff really can interfere with the very precise choreography of that protection, and you don't want that. You really don't want that. And what you're doing is you're protecting the sheet metal of the car from an impact with a kangaroo, which is really just an insurance problem. It's not just you losing your life or waking up unable to feel your legs in a hospital bed kind of thing, right? So bull bars are unnecessary pieces of shit from that point of view as well. They're pretty bad if you hit a pedestrian at speeds that the pedestrian might otherwise be expected to survive the impact. And you got to ask yourself, when you're standing there at ARB or something and you're looking at that bull bar and you're thinking, "Oh yeah, I just want to get started, mate." If you are that dude, then, and that bull bar is whatever it is, a couple of grand or something, do you really want it ultimately costing you 20 grand? Because that's what it's likely to be in practice.